Hey, bud. What's happening today?
Black elderberry. Now, let's not confuse this with the black or the berry, but black elderberry.
Did you call it the black of the berry? What is black elderberry?
It is a natural berry that grows in the world.
Uh-huh.
I don't know anything about the berry other than its immune supporting properties for the human body.
Is it tasty? Have you?
It's it's kind of like a raspberry or a blackberry with no sugar. Like, because what I get is it's just an extract, and I just put it under my tongue when I feel like I'm getting sick.
Does it help?
Yes.
Really?
Like
like better than some of the other ones you've talked about?
No, I use it along with zinc and oregano oil and vitamin D.
Yeah.
But like so since then I have become, due to your comment, consistent about using them since my daughter's in daycare and she brings something home every day.
Have you been sick less?
No, I haven't been sick since that. I took that kind of personally. I was like, I do get sick. I have all these tools.
Testimony. Preach. Ooh. I want to try this one. I don't get sick a lot. I actually hardly ever get sick. So,
well,
but still.
Well, you're just really well emotionally adjusted or some shit.
Emotionally adjusted.
Hi, I'm Gina. I'm a past guest and an avid listener, and I'm happy to be introducing today's show. This is the More in Common podcast. Welcome. This is a place where we explore the fact that we have more in common than that which divides us by anchoring humanity in compassionate conversation. Now, remember, you can find all things More in Common at moreincommonpod.com. Their episodes, merchandise, and blogs. And definitely, if you like what you hear, give them a like in your favorite podcast app. Leave a review and we will try to read it on a future show. And of course, share. This is season 2 of 2020 that they have dubbed A Decade Possible. And season 2 is Discovery. Today's episode is with Brenda Nova, aka Brenda Nova. Brenda grew up a stout Jehovah's Witness and through her experiences had to navigate depression through adolescence that led to attempts of suicide. As a result, she has developed a passion for helping others find themselves. As a musician, she looks to channel that through her music. She writes her own music that aims to send a message about healing from issues with self-esteem, self-image, and emotional trauma. This is a soulful conversation that just makes us feel good. Hopefully it makes you feel good too. In this conversation, they talk about a lot of things. Her value in helping others find themselves through self-awareness and authenticity, her challenge to self-discovery, her journey as a Jehovah's Witness, and much more. Enjoy today's amazing conversation with Brenda.
Survive and thrive in this economy, but we leave out the importance of loving self, of believing in self, the importance of establishing confidence, how to establish confidence. We look at failure as something bad. And in my experience, I've been failing my way to where I am. And it's because of my failures, I've been learning and growing and have the hunger and desire to continue to do better. And I know that I will continue to fail my way to success. I know that's cliche, but I've been through a lot to make me grow up fast. And I've also just been I've always been curious and I love knowledge. I love learning. That's fun to me.
Today we are with Brenda Nova. Brenda, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. Happy to be here.
So are we. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. You had this post on Instagram And you mentioned we can talk about the whole thing, but you mentioned a fluoride stare. You said when you say something important and all you get back is that fluoride stare. Mm-hmm. What is a fluoride stare?
I don't know.
It's a glazed over look of, huh? As in, like Keith said, I don't know. It's glazed. That's the word that comes to mind. It's just complete ignorance, just completely oblivious.
Got you.
In my opinion.
This that 1,000-yard stare that you get from a new parent when they've just had their child.
Or
I wouldn't know.
Like,
or
when you
anyone,
like,
when they just don't know what's going on.
Like, is it about anything that you say? Like, how does that play out in that glazed over? Why is it called a fluoride stare?
I mainly feel that that's associated to things dealing with consciousness and self-awareness, more so than social subjects.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very much so concerned and passionate and hungry for global self-awareness. I think that all of the issues could be resolved if we would look within ourselves, if we would become more aware of self, more mindful of self. And so when I touch on topics that deal with that, as far as self-love, esteem, worth, intuition, those kinds of things, I'll get that still like, what are you talking about? Huh? So that's
Why do you think you get the stare? Like, why do you think? Are you saying it's the majority of people that you talk to don't, like, they hear those terms and they're like, I have no clue, or is it just a small percentage, or what's the makeup, and then why do you think that is?
In my experience, it's been the majority, and I think it's been that because of conditioning. We're conditioned to look to external sources for self-worth, for everything, really. We're not taught in schools to believe and trust in yourself. It's about getting a good education so you can get a good job and then survive and thrive in this economy. But we leave out the importance of loving self, of believing in self, the importance of establishing confidence, how to establish confidence. We look at failure as something bad. And in my experience, I've been failing my way to where I am. And it's because of my failures, I've been learning and growing and have the hunger and desire to continue to do better. And I know that I will continue to fail my way to success. I know that's cliche, but it definitely fits.
I've been thinking about this a lot recently.
So have
Is it the failure itself or the analysis of the failure? And I only say because I'm a super literal person, and sometimes I hear that and I'm like, yeah, no, but I mean, I 100% believe that if you don't fail and you don't make something from everything, the wins and the losses, then you can't grow. But I feel like there's almost a gotcha, a trap in saying fail fast, fail often, without the caveat, like, it's how you fail. It's not just failing.
So to answer, I would say it's the analysis of the failure, because after that, there's a reflection of either what can I take from this? How can I learn? Or I suck because I failed. I shouldn't try again. So I think whichever angle of approach you use in analyzing the failure is what's going to determine whether you try it again, or whether you give up, or whether you can learn from it and keep going.
No, I'd agree with that. Now, and I've been in this whole realm of self-awareness as we spend a lot of time on the back end, like just Rodney and I talking about this, trying to grow, trying to build, trying to get better, do more with what we have, and really that internal self-reflection. Because you said something there, we're trained to be a part of the machine. right?
Mm-hmm.
And that machine, in theory, is really about the social consciousness, right? The idea that we all contribute to something that everybody is a part of. Now, does it need to be a machine? No, right? But how do you look at the reflection of self-awareness while also being part of the broader social consciousness? Does that make sense?
How do I look at self-awareness or self-reflection while still being involved in broader social consciousness?
Yeah, there's social contribution. So,
I think it ties in.
yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like once you do choose to be self-aware and you establish how you can contribute, then you can do it authentically, and that'll add to social anything, because we're all connected. And I feel like in us individually aligning and growing but choosing to do so, then we can all contribute to one another and do it authentically. So, because I think that's important too. Not doing something because you feel obligated, but because in your heart you really want to, and you realize this will help this person, that'll in turn help them, and at the end we're all helping one another.
I completely agree. And it's one of those things that the more authentic you are, the more aware of who you are, the more you can actually bring to the collective. Whereas if you're going through the motions of obligation, you will bring less of yourself to the collective and ultimately impact negatively the collective. And even if it's inadvertently, it may not be directly, it may not hurt somebody, but by virtue of not being your best, I totally agree with that. I think.
So is that the definition then of authentic or genuine? You know, that that it's a little buzzwordy these days, like, oh, be authentic, like, but is that the definition, like being self-aware, being so that you can bring yourself to any situation that you're in, or how would you two define it?
I would define it as being true to yourself. So maybe that's synonymous with self-awareness. I would say being true to yourself and doing what feels good and right to you.
How has that journey been for you?
It's been challenging. It's been challenging because I grew up in a very strict religion where I was taught.
Which one?
Jehovah's Witness. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. And we were taught to be obedient, to never question anything. Critical thinking was not encouraged. Education was not encouraged. It was all about, this is God's will and this is what we're supposed to do, and there's nothing else. So coming out of that, which I did, fortunately, I was left in a huge state of confusion as far as who I am and what am I supposed to believe and what do I do. So I, through research, and I love to read, and I just started questioning things, and I still question, because ultimately I think everything is about your perception. There's a billion ideas and opinions and facts, things that people agree upon, but ultimately I believe you should go with what feels right and good to you. So going back to that, it was challenging because, and it's been challenging because when you're accustomed to following the crowd, to break away and then start saying, wait a minute, I really want to do this, it's difficult. Especially, it's like a habit that you have to break and then build another one. So it's been challenging, but in a good way, because I've learned a lot about who I am, what I represent. And that's still a question that I don't have 1,000% defined. I don't know that I ever will, but I'm enjoying learning and expanding and growing in that sense.
So you mentioned in Jehovah, or in your religious experience, like it was very much, this is it, can't question it.
Mm-hmm. Cult-like.
I heard something 2 days ago, and I've tried to define the difference between religion and cult like for almost much of my life, and I don't know that I have the answer, but I heard this the other day. Somebody said, if you want to know who's in power, figure out who you're not allowed to criticize. Like whoever you're not allowed to criticize is the one that's in power. And then so hearing you say that, I'm like, huh. So if you're in a church or group or whatever, and you can't criticize that group, how, I guess there could be some healthiness in that, but there may not be. If you can't because if you can't question it, then how can it grow? How can you be certain that that it's the best thing for you or the best thing for whatever? But I don't know. What do you guys think about that idea, not being able to question something in it having power?
Keith, you want to go first, or you want me to answer?
No,
first?
You go first. I got to think about it for a second.
Well,
I think I have some thoughts.
I think that the differences between cult and religion are exactly that. Cult doesn't allow you, quote, allow you to question anything. Religion, well, first, I don't feel like either are necessary. I feel like they're both established to control and to instill fear. But cult is more so strict and restricting in that you're not allowed to question. I found that, especially in the South where I live, this is the Bible Belt. So there's a lot of, I'm a Christian and big churches, and it's very much a religious community. So observing them and knowing some of them, they do question things, but there's uncertainty everywhere. No one really knows what to believe, so they kind of go by the pastor's word, and it's like, okay, well, this is my pastor, and they idolize this person.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of jumping around.
No, that's good. I'm writing it down.
It's been interesting to observe, and a lot of times, going back to that fluoride stare, I get that a lot from my Christian folks down here in the South. So that's interesting indeed. I've had plenty of discussion that sometimes turns into argument, and then I just walk away. But anyways, getting back to your question, as far as cult and religion, cult more so does not emphasize questioning anything, and in bigger religions, I don't think that that's necessarily encouraged, but I don't see it as frowned upon. Short answer after the long answer.
Yeah, no, it's good. You'll get a lot of that from us, so we're used to it.
We're qualifiers.
Yeah,
we like to jump. So
if you haven't noticed already, I think it's an interesting point of view. There's that word again, interesting. In that, when I think it's a power over yourself. Right. I think the idea, to your point, is what you can't question is power over you insofar as you allow it to be. Right. Granted, there are certain societies, certain places where if you do question, they have physical power over you and they may imprison you or whatever the case. Whereas here, that depends on where you are. But for the most part, if you're kind of like what you did, Brenda, right? Like you could allow for it or you could question it and decide, okay, this doesn't have that over me any longer. I need to pave my own path or do my own thing. And, because you start questioning things, when you question the company you work for, you start giving yourself power to decide, do I want to stay there? Do I want to not go stay there? You give yourself freedom. So it's an interesting point in such that what you can't question is the thing that ultimately has power over you, whether it's the structural power or just, identity power that makes you not do certain things. That's the way I would look at it. But on that line, thinking.
Go ahead. I was gonna go to the cult religion thing more.
So they were like, there's this, on this whole religion thing, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson.
God, man, what?
For real?
No, I'm not.
You'd be fascinated by their debates that they have on YouTube. They have 4 of them. It's fantastic, heady dialogue. But
are
at
they
the same
politics?
time, no, it's more about moral code.
One's a psychologist, one's a scientist, and they are modern day
Neuroscientists.
philosophers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they are debating, in this sense, ethics and morality and how we as humans move together. And they're coming one from a Christian religious framework, somewhat, kind of.
But it's
for
a
Jordan.
religious
It's
framework.
kind of. He kind of has, like, he doesn't have a problem with religion. I'll put it like that.
Right.
That's not
But he also
necessarily his framework.
believes that the
He's also a
religious-
scientist, and
Yeah.
and then the other guy hates religion, like and I
foundation.
say that, but like he hates religion, but he has other frameworks for getting to good and ethics and like morality, and so they're just debating, like, well, as a society, like, how do we promote good? And one says, well, religion is a good mechanism for that, and another says that it's not. But I don't know where you were going with it.
And
Keith.
that's effectively where I'm going with it, because on the one side of the debate says that people need the simplified moral code that religion ultimately provides to be quote unquote good. On the other side, Sam Harris's point of view is we all have a general sense of what is good. So we can all, and this kind of goes to your comment about self-identity, is what feels right, right? And then you tie that into your background as a Jehovah's Witness, and then leaving that, like, how do you feel religion provides a guideline for people to do what feels right while that feeling is good, and not follow a what feels right when that is negative towards other people, and not having the religious structure at the same time? Like, where would you fall? Like, what do you think about? I know this is kind of an off-the-cuff question and a roundabout way of getting there, but like, does that make sense? I'm curious to get your take on it, since you have that religious background, but you left it and you live by a code of what feels right, but you're a good person. So, like, do you think that applies to everybody?
I think if you're brave enough to decide to trust yourself and go with what's innately in all of us, then it's for you. I feel like what religion has done is given some people something to believe in, because we all have a need to believe in something. And because we've been conditioned for so long to think it's not within us, for those that are in religion, I feel like it's been beneficial in that way. But that's also because they haven't decided to trust what's innately within them. During my time as a Jehovah's Witness, I never trusted myself. I didn't believe in myself. I felt like everything was supposed to be given to me and taught to me. And I remember feeling extremely depressed and just lost. And coming out of that, I did too for a while, because there was still that lack of identity. But then I started to trust. I started to read. I think that self-education is important in that sense, so that you can find the roots or the origins of religions and the purpose that they serve. And I may be going around because I'm thinking of different elements from your question.
Yeah, no, this is good.
But if you would break it in half, you said initially, what do you think it, or no, actually, will you repeat the first half of your question?
Like, just, I think the first half was generally what do you think religion's role is? It would be probably where I was going with that, even if that might not have been how I did. Followed by, do you think people, and I guess, does it have a purpose? And do you think people are equipped to live a good life, even though a good life I will always put in air quotes, by a what feels right, by a subconscious moral ethic that we all may or may not have?
Okay, so first half, I feel like the role of religion has been to provide a moral compass for people that are not, I don't think we have, the majority of us are equipped because of, again, conditioning. And this is stemmed down from history and generation tras generación. Switched it to Spanish. Generation to generation.
I was like, wait, what did you just say? I don't know. I was
generation
like,
to generation.
So it turns out it wasn't English, and that's why I didn't understand.
Yeah. I think that unfortunately the majority of people are not equipped to do that because they've been taught not to believe in themselves. For me, it comes back full circle. If you're taught that you don't have the answer within, then you're going to grow up thinking you don't have the answer within. So let me look for it externally. So I think that religion has provided, again, that moral compass for people to decide what's good and what's wrong. But I do believe that it's possible. I don't know that may be something that we see in this lifetime because of the humongous role that religion plays in the world. I don't know that it's possible right now, but I do believe that it's possible. And I do believe that there's a shift of awareness happening where people are starting to question and starting to waken up and see, okay, maybe there's another way of looking at things when it comes to everything. I think that people are starting to overall question things. At least that's my hope and desire internally. So I know that that's being projected somewhere. So that's why I feel that. But I do feel like if we started changing the paradigm of belief when it comes to religion, when it comes to self, when it comes to educating, then we would totally be capable of just trusting yourself and knowing innately, yes, this is right or this is wrong. And for me, a good rule of thumb is to think, okay, whatever I'm going to do, what I want it done to me. Whatever I'm going to say, what I want that said to me. Because ultimately, we're all connected. What I do affects you and in turn affects the other. And I think that there's no need for any other compass.
The pastor thing, like the pedestalizing of the pastor, it's interesting because I've been, I don't know how many different churches growing up, Catholic, Christian, non-denominational. And like the best pastors I had, they would open up talking by like, question everything I say. Come see me later if you have a question. And I'm not a God. I am just a mess. I'm just passing my interpretation of this to you, and you got to figure it out for yourself. Back to my idea of people being dumb in groups. What the congregation tends to do is like, this guy's got it. Like he spends all this time, like this guy is like, oh my God, I've never seen it like that. And he's amazing. And it's like, well, yeah, if you spent all day reading it, you might grab some new things too. But we don't. We just go to this person for our understanding and
Give your
Gives us
power
a
away.
different thought.
yeah, give your power away. But like in those cases, I was fortunate where I had somebody I could question. Whereas I don't know that everybody has. Though I know that everybody does not have that.
Especially
Definitely not
when someone refers to their religion growing up as a cult.
Right. And it was. And it was.
No holidays. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah, no birthdays, man. Come on.
Presents.
That sucks.
No presents. What's going on?
That really sucked.
My sister had a friend growing up. He would join us just to like get a taste of it. He's like, I'm not really celebrating. I'm just here though.
And having to do stuff in secret. I mean, feeling like you're wrong for just wanting to do everyday things. Come on, man.
There's another thing between cults and religion, like secrecy. Like if there's stuff
Double
that's
lives.
not out in the open, then like, hey, nix it, because like that don't work in any organization. In any organization. And funny, like a lot of the stuff we're talking about, religion or not, like this flows through to everything. Companies, it flows through to politics, to media, all of it.
I do think it's possible for us to get to that point, though. One mind at a time, one person deciding at a time. And I'm not saying it'll be quick or easy, but I do think it's possible for everyone to get to that point. And it may sound idealistic, but I love the idea. It's part of what inspires me and part of what I do music for, to increase self-awareness and to increase questioning and just knowing that anything is possible. Anything is possible. And if you're focused and determined, and not just so for the benefits of self, but for the benefits of all of us.
So you said music. You use music to help enable self-awareness and like, so how does that work for you, or how do you see it work for others when you're performing? Like, how does that work?
Music is unlimited opportunity, unlimited possibility, unlimited expression. And I feel like because it is so open and free creatively, anything goes. And it's the one thing for me that ties everyone together. Another cliche, it's a universal language, and it really is. I think the frequency provided by music instantly adds either joy or calmness or whatever emotion you need at the moment is provided by music. And I think it goes straight to the heart. So for me, it's always been my creative expression. I've been singing since I could speak. Dancing as well. That's always just been a way to just be free.
What kind of dance?
Oh, I was telling Rodney, what I do now primarily is Latin. So merengue, salsa, bachata, cumbia, a little tango, although I need to work on that. But when I was younger, I did some tap dancing, and actually a little hip hop as well, and tribal dancing. I don't really know how to describe it, except it just felt tribal. So, but going back to the question, what was the question?
How does music enable that shift of awareness in you and in others?
Oh, okay. Oh, then I feel I've answered it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as it touching the heart and being able to express freely.
So what, like, when did you leave being a Jehovah's Witness?
I was 14.
And what has that journey been like to self-awareness for you? Like you mentioned, you're always finding it and evolving and changing.
Mm-hmm.
But like I imagine, especially at that age, it mustn't have
14,
been
you're still with your parents, right?
Yes.
Were they okay with that?
With my mom. My mom actually left first. So interestingly, she was gone 2 years prior to me leaving, and that made for a very difficult relationship with my mother. We didn't talk for...
Were you angry at her or mad at her? Or?
Confused, angry. I felt abandoned. Mm-hmm. And I remember I wanted to get baptized. She wouldn't let me, and I remember feeling such rage toward her. And then later on going back and saying thank you for not letting me do that. After I came to my own conclusions about what that meant and being that much more committed to a society that I no longer wanted to be a part of. So my father was not around growing up. So I was born into the religion. So he was what they call disfellowship. They kicked him out. My mother disassociated herself. She chose to leave.
Say disfellowship?
Yes.
Is that kind of like excommunication?
Like,
exactly.
What do you have to do to get kicked out?
Celebrate Christmas.
Actually,
Or your birthday.
you're not off. Actually, celebrating holidays is a definite no. You're going straight to hell. So that was one.
And really, shouldn't that be punishment enough? Like, do we have to kick you out of the group too?
Right?
It's just
going to hell.
I mean, for me, the biggest one that always hit me was my birthdays. My birthdays. Because for me, a lot of holidays, it's so much commercialism centered around it and getting more people's money. But I like the bringing the people togetherness of it. But anyways, that's another thing. So that mainly affected me the most, though, not having birthdays. And so my mom left before I did. And I was 14. And what else did you say? How has that been?
Well,
like,
real
just
quick,
what
because
is
this is
that?
part of it. This is the journey of like being in it, being out of it. So like birthdays, you're aware of the concept of birthdays, but you didn't celebrate them.
Right.
Your friends. Wait, so were you 100% in a Jehovah's Witness community, like school
So
and
no one
Well, no,
celebrated birthdays.
the school there are no schools that are just for Jehovah's Witness. So I went to a public school. So everyone around me was doing all the normal kid things, and I was not. So any holidays, any extracurricular activities was also not allowed because I was considered worldly.
So like no
And
band,
no band,
sports.
no sports. So even the dance crew that I was in, I had to get out of because it was too worldly.
How did you process that at such a young age? Like everybody else is doing these things that seem natural, social, or like were you, I mean, obviously you were in it until you were 14. So I imagine you weren't, it wasn't like, how did that affect you?
I was severely depressed. I internalized all my emotions. I tried to kill myself once. It was terrible.
How
Yeah,
old?
all
How
of
old
it.
when you had the suicide attempt?
I was
You're
12.
not our first guest telling us this, by the way. So,
I was 12.
how
Is
did
that
you,
around the time your mom got out? You
Yeah.
said she left a couple years before you.
Yes, actually.
did that contribute to it? To the
No.
depression?
No.
It
I mean,
was-
well, I mean, it didn't. Yeah, I mean, it did, but that's not why. I remember that's not why I wanted to. I just hated my life. At that time, I just hated my life.
And so, can I ask what saved you? I mean, you made the actual attempt.
At that time, I remember there was a lady that she gave me Bible studies, and I remember, wow, I'm really digging deep into the memories here. I remember just talking to her about it, and I always felt like I could confide in her, like a counselor, if you will. And I remember her telling me, no, but you have purpose here. And I remember asking, what purpose could I possibly have? I can't do anything I want to do. And that's when I started questioning, well, why can't you do anything you want to do? And why can't you find your purpose? But I still didn't make any act on it until a few years later. But mainly that lady, she was a very close friend of mine, and I confided in her. And I remember it was her sadness at the thought of losing me that made me feel like, okay, maybe I'll stick around because of her.
And like gave
Did you?
purpose.
Yeah.
So from a timeline perspective, so you attempted. It didn't work
Didn't work.
for whatever reason. And then so she knew about it, or you told her about it, and then she shared that with you.
I told her about it, and then she shared it with me.
Okay. And that idea that you have purpose has stuck with you.
Yes.
How did that, like you said, you felt abandoned by your mom. I mean, that 2-year window. How did you get through all of that? Like, because that's a lot, right?
It
You
is.
feel no personal self-worth. You are depressed. Now you feel abandoned by your mother. And you said your dad wasn't around.
Right.
So,
Did
like,
she-
how did you
how did-
manage
how
through
did
that
she
at
exit?
an age?
Like, did
She-
she just leave and say
she
you
wrote a
can
letter.
come, or
She wrote a letter to the elders and told them that she was no longer going. But she knew that at that time, just my brother and I remained, I guess, obedient Jehovah's Witnesses. We have 3 siblings. My oldest has never been about that life. She's never been about it. She was just there because she had to be. My older sister.
dipped as soon as she could?
Absolutely, yeah. She's been such a great example of following self and intuition. She always trusted herself and always went with herself. So I was happy to have that example, even though we never got along growing up. But anyways, so going back, my mother...
Probably for that reason, right?
Yeah. So my mother knew that my brother and I still wanted to be actively involved in the organization, so she would still take us to the meetings, and to go preaching and all that. So, but it was a terrible time. There's a lot of it that I've chosen to block out of my memory because it no longer serves me any purpose to even think about it. So I don't know how I got through those 2 years. In all honesty, I don't know. It must have been divine grace. It must have been, because I don't know. I I don't
Our
know.
brains are amazing. Like we can withstand some stuff, and
Yeah, we
our
can.
brains do things to help us survive
Absolutely.
all kinds of shit.
So you finally made the decision to leave yourself. Like, how
Yeah.
did you come to that decision? And then what has been the journey to self-awareness been like for you?
So what made me make the decision actually was something very superficial. They scolded me because I decided to color my hair a radical red. Woo. And I remember thinking, are you serious? I know some of these kids are going to clubs and having sex and smoking weed, and you're going to get on me about my hair color? And that just for me was just like, oh, that's it. I'm out of here.
Question.
So what?
Questioning.
Yeah,
Bad
exactly.
logic.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second, what?
Yeah, exactly. So then I left, and my mother was happy about it, but she also just wasn't able to provide me any guidance on what to do next. So I pretty much spent the next several years lost, angry, confused, and really not knowing what to do, period. And what saved me was at 23. I'll be turning 33 this year, this November. So I'm excited about that for several reasons. But I decided to start researching. I had always enjoyed reading. I was reading fiction, and I lived in my imagination a lot. So part of that must have helped during those 2 years. But I've always been I've always had a very vivid imagination, and I just started pretending and daydreaming and thinking of what things could be like. So I started reading. And I ended up coming across Universal Laws, which has taken me from one author to another. I mean, going from Jim Rohn to Les Brown to Louise Hay to Reverend Ike, T.D. Jakes, even some of the more religious speakers or gurus, if you will, anyone that had to do with self-help and personal development. And so I pretty much engrossed myself in that and have done so for the last 10 years, maybe a little more than 10. And that's just opened me up to so much about myself, to the point where now I don't do as much reading. I still listen to an audiobook here and there, but I really look within. I do a lot of meditating. I do a lot of writing, creative writing. Singing is a wonderful expression for me because I'm able to still continue learning about myself. And lately I've been talking to a lot of old people. I've been open and receptive to wisdom, and that's been really helpful and really calming in a weird way.
By old, you mean old age-wise, like time on this planet?
I do mean that, because although I don't think you necessarily have to have had the years to have the wisdom.
Well, I was gonna say I would qualify you as an old soul.
I definitely am.
You're 33, but you don't speak as if you're 33.
Yeah. Well, I've been through a lot to make me grow up fast, and I've also just been I've always been curious, and I love knowledge. I love learning. That's fun to me.
What do you
Also,
take
real
from-
quick, Keith, sorry,
yeah.
having age doesn't make you wise either. There's a lot
Right,
of old.
exactly.
yeah.
That's why I said
Unwise
that. Yeah. And I welcome wisdom and knowledge from all. I never think, oh, because you're younger, you don't know. Absolutely not. Souls are ageless, and
What do you take? I mean, you say you're talking to elders.
mm-hmm.
This is I don't know if it is a thing, right? Where we generally, as a culture, don't do that anymore. We put them in a home, and
Unfortunately.
we separate them from society so that the elderly talk to the elderly, and we don't listen to them and learn from them. What's that experience like for you? What do you take from those like? Functionally, how does it work? Do you just go to retirement home? Like, what do you do? When you
No,
get home?
actually, the jazz gig that I have every week is frequented by a lot of old people, and that's been really enlightening for me. What I'm gaining more than anything is the value of emotional intelligence, because that's something that I got zero of growing up. Do good in school, make good grades, but when it comes to emotional intelligence, it's like, what is that?
You don't have them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also perspective on, when you asked earlier what I'm interested in, I think, and I said peace and harmony.
Harmony, acceptance, surrender, shrimp,
and exactly. Yeah, and I eat shrimp usually every week there, and last night. Anyways, but yeah, they've helped give me perspective on that. Yeah, life gives us challenges, but what attitude are you going to choose to deal with them? Are you going to choose to be defeated by it, or are you going to choose to keep going? And not only that, everybody has a story. Everybody has challenges. So no one person's story is worse or better than another's. It's just you deal with the cards you were dealt in the way that you choose, and it's up to you ultimately to either let this be what defeats you, or let this be what catapults you to continue to do better. And my drive comes absolutely from within me only. I realized that I chose my parents and my experience to give that to myself, that internal substance, that internal strength to keep going. And that's part of why I've delayed on having a family. I said earlier, I'm in no rush for that. And I also want to get to the place where I can provide that kind of environment if and when I have a family. Because, as a Latina, that's like, what? You're 33, you're not married, no kids, what? That's unheard of. So that's part of it. So I'm just determined to get to where I want to get to, and I will.
That's amazing.
Latina,
so hold your question ready.
What's your heritage?
And both of my parents are from the Dominican Republic.
The DR.
Yep.
When I was fluent in Spanish in college, I hung out with a lot of different. Oh, before I even say that, how do you feel about the term Latinx? Do you use it? Do you not?
I've never heard it before.
No?
No.
Never? Is, well, maybe it's because I'm in LA and we're all special, but the whole, Keith's heard of it. Right. The Latinx. So there's a movement within and without of Latino communities to remove the masculine, feminine out of saying Latino,
the Latinx movement,
and saying Latinx.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's like, instead of calling someone him or her, calling them they because of their orientation, or if they've decided to.
Right.
I get it.
But it's I guess it's like that, but it's saying that that's how we're going to, or some would say like that's how we're going to now. Instead, we're not going to say Latino, we're going to say Latinx, because Latino is because it's the the priority goes to the male in Spanish. So if there's a group of women, it's Latinas, but if there's one guy, then they're Latinos. So they're like, no, we're gonna go Latinx, and so
I really don't have an opinion on that. I mean, if that makes some people feel good, cool. Yeah,
I like that approach.
The reason I was bringing it so when I was fluent in Spanish back in the day, one of my guys is from Bolivia, so his nickname was Bolivia. And they called me Domini because they're like, yeah, you look like you could be Dominican.
You
do.
You do.
I'm curious about like the choice of self-discovery, and kind of going back to that conversation about the place of self-awareness and structural religion coinciding together. If you were to attribute positive from your Jehovah's Witness experience, like, do you think that gave you a moral grounding into your intuitions today? Like, what role do you think that plays into the person that you are today, aside from the resistance role?
Yes, I do think it has attributed to my grounding morally simply because it happened. I chose it for a reason, and I think in one way I like to think this eases my mind. I chose it to keep me from another path that could have been self-destructive. I realized one of my weaknesses has been having an addictive personality. I'm naturally curious, and I will try anything once, most anything. Now that I have more knowledge, most anything, not absolutely everything. And so in some ways that can be detrimental. So I think in as far as something positive that Jehovah's Witness provided for me, I think it kept me from doing something self-destructive. Artists tend, not just artists, but we're dramatic, we're dramatic and we're drawn to that.
Drama.
Yeah. And I joke sometimes with some people and say, well, I'm an artist. Of course I'm dramatic. What do you expect? Come on. But sometimes I think that could have gone to extremes. I've had a lot of extreme experiences, especially in my early 20s. And that puts myself at ease to give me an answer as to why this experience. So it's definitely necessary.
Yeah, I think that's I appreciate that perspective. Just, the optimism of it when you had, quite frankly, such a bad experience with it. Like, and I think this kind of goes back to that conversation of that synergy of how it is important, or it can be important, and play a good role, but it doesn't have to be the guiding light word for word forever and all time. Like, it can be a foundation to self-discovery rather than a foundation to moral authority.
And just now while you were speaking, I thought about another positive, because I was thinking there has to be more than that. But it's giving me a foundation for self-reflection and being a comfortable introvert, being comfortable with being alone and reading and seeking knowledge. I did all of that because that came natural, and it was kind of my only way of learning more, and that's definitely stuck with me. So I view that as a positive because it contributed to my growth and my expansion. So yeah, there's a little more.
Sweet. I like it. I like it. Did you have a question, Rodney?
I'm just thinking about what you two just said, so I don't at the moment. I can think of one. So wait, a quick time check. We got about
We got
7 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm trying not to get too deep into something because we
I
have
don't
the
want to go
final
too deep.
question
But you
to
just
ask.
mentioned something about your 20s, and I'm kind of. You said some extreme experiences. Yeah. Can you give us some, maybe a story or like some examples of what you mean by extreme? Well,
sure, I'm pretty open.
Wait, hold on. Maybe not so much that. Like, what did the lessons of your 20s teach you? How about that? What did you take from it?
Moderation, and the what keeps playing over is to trust my intuition. I'll get red flags and ignore them, and I especially did that in relationship choices in my 20s, and that's been huge. So moderation and don't ignore the red flags. They're there for a reason. Intuition always has a way of speaking with us. It's whether we choose to listen or not.
That's actually been one of the transitional mentalities that Rodney and I both are trying to employ for different reasons. We just didn't trust our own intuition for a very long time, for very different reasons, for that matter. But at the same time, we are learning to try and use the feeling as a data point for decision making, right? Like, and not just saying, oh, that doesn't matter. Let me think about it entirely logically and come to a decision that doesn't feel right, like using it as a decision point. One of our guests once used the coin flip analogy when it came to making decisions. And she always said, like, you can pro and con this thing all day long, but flip a coin, and whichever one you decide to accept the answer right away versus going best two of three is probably the decision that you want to make, right? And it's not easy. It hasn't been easy.
That's usually intuition. It tells you quick, but we like to sometimes overthink things and be like, nah, that can't be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this quote from the great Bruce Lee. Well, great in my opinion.
I second that. He was great.
He was.
It says he said, the medicine for my suffering I had within me from the very beginning, but I did not take it. My ailment came from within myself, but I did not observe it until this moment. Now I see I will never find the light unless, like a candle, I am my own fuel. And I mean, this dude was a philosopher for sure, but like, it's so accurate for me, I found. And in my interpretation of what my faith means and my relationship with God and my relationship with how like, when I say Christianity, it's very different than like standard Christianity. But like, my view of it is like God is within each one of us. God is within me. And the answer is here. Like I just need to listen. And like to your point earlier, you said you spend more time reflecting and you spend more time expressing and writing and creating and listening. And I think that, at least for me, that has also been very key. And I think there's probably stages, kind of like a butterfly, caterpillar and metamorphosis, like stages of life where it's like, all right, I got to take in all these experiences, good, bad, whatever, and then turn them into what I think and what I believe and what I know. And it's been, so I've gone through something similar recently where it's just like, yeah, I don't really need Netflix. Like, I'm gonna go write. Like, I got a story that I want to make, which is really, it's been kind of cool.
That is cool.
With just a few minutes left, as we have to wind down the clock here, we always ask one last question.
What thought would you leave our audience, your audience, with as we come to the end? And actually, even before that, I want to say thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you for joining us, and it's been such a cool and fun and
like, I would describe this as just like a chill conversation.
Yeah.
Like we were usually when we get into topics this heavy, like my head's kind of like, oh man, I need a nap now. But I feel like really,
I feel like I just meditated for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I feel like I meditated.
Yeah.
Nice.
So thank you.
That's what kind of energy came up.
Yeah.
You're very welcome, and thank you. It's been thought-provoking, and I also feel real relaxed. I feel pretty good.
Oh, good.
What I would leave any audience is to trust yourself. Trust yourself. Listen to your heart and trust yourself. Simple.